Thank you for joining us on the Downing Cut today. My guest, I am so thrilled. I am so excited, and I'm honored and humbled that he gave some time up for us. I have an Emmy Award-winning makeup artist, Brian Sipe, founder of Gamut Studios and the makeup department head for Legacy Effects. He has worked on notable films and TV series such as the 1989, including The Mandalorian, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Avengers Endgame, and the X-Men franchise. His innovative work on Black, White earned him an Emmy in 2006, and he contributed to the Oscar-winning makeup for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Thank you to the Downing Cut. Thank you for being here, Brian. I'm so flabbergasted. I'm nervous because
that sounds great. Who is this guy?
I am like, I think when we first met was on Star Trek Phoenix, and you came aboard, and I didn't know who you were, and you probably didn't know who I was, and that was actually one of the first acting gigs I ever had.
Right.
So I was brand new into this whole thing, and when someone said, "Hey, that guy did the Spock ears on Star Trek," and I was like, "What?" And that was the door. The floodgates opened, and you have grown so massive into what you're doing now. And I want to touch on that and also remind the viewers that this is an avenue you can go down. I mean, it's not being replaced by CGI.
Well, it's a possible avenue. We can see how far you want to delve into this, especially this early on. But it certainly can. I mean, Davy Jones was one of the very first, very successful, CGI characters. And I mean, that's what AI is, right? It's just another initials for VFX, using databases and everything. There's some digital filmmakers out there doing some pretty amazing things that are just AI driven. I saw something the other day called the Heretic. It's like these witches, and they were like going to sacrifice a baby and Baphomet and all this. I mean, this stuff is amazing. There's a guy named Christopher Perna or something like that, but it was really, really good. I mean, there's something about the reflectivity that you can kind of, okay, that's CG. I mean, that's not, real, but I mean, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty good.
I want to ask you this before we dive deep. I want to ask you, how did your journey start? How did you get into this career?
When I was a kid, I think I just always liked monster movies. King Kong. I grew up in Portland, just outside Portland. Watching, Saturday night Nightmare Cinemas, and I think right before Saturday Night Live or after Saturday Night Live, these monster movies would come on, and it was just that, I think, coupled with, I also, as a kid, I liked magic. I liked fooling people. I liked scaring people. I liked, it all just kind of combined. And actually, it was right around, video era had started, and there was, like, in my little town, 10 miles away, was just one place we could rent videos. So one day rented, it was The Thing, John Carpenter's remake of The Thing. And, I was watching all the horror movies at that time and wasn't really even thinking about it, other than that I enjoyed it. Watched The Thing, and it was I was overtaken by it. I mean, Rob Bottin, they did the creature and makeup effects in that. There was so much amazing stuff in there that was all practical or stop motion, or it was still kind of a version of that. But I think I held on to that video way too long, and we incurred all kinds of late fees, and so my parents caught attention to that, and my dad remembered. And one time when he was on a trip, a work trip, going through an airport, newsstand, and there was a Cinema Fantastique magazine with Rob Bottin on the cover. It was like the crab head, like the guy's head that sprouted the legs and crawls off.
Wow.
So he remembered that, bought the magazine for me. And inside the magazine, there were, Rob Bottin talking about how they did this stuff, and just everything about it. A guy named Mike Flug, I think was his name. He did like these little illustrations that were kind of like Mad Magazine kind of illustrations of how things were done, and showing hinges and pulleys and stuff. And for some reason, I like looking at those drawings. I thought someone's got to build this stuff. Yeah, I want to build that stuff. And that's really. I think what sparked it. I kind of realized, oh wow, that's a job. That is actually a job that I want to do and go for. And from that moment on, I just kind of dug into everything that I could about makeup. In Portland, which was not much. Picked up a couple of magazines, Fangoria and Gore Zone, stuff like that, and just read as much as I could.
That was it. You didn't go there wasn't a class, a school, workshops.
In Portland, there wasn't anything. I think there was a guy took a 2-day, maybe a 1-day class from a guy at Portland State Theater, and I just read. I read. There was a book. Tom Savini had put out a book, and so I bought that. There's another book that I thought was one of my Bibles. Was a book called Three-Dimensional Makeup. A guy named Lee Bagan. I mentioned that right. He wrote the book with the guy. That I think he was like I had been NBC's department head for a while. But someone comes through. It was just I just kept reading as much as I could, and there was nothing to do. I was up in Hillsborough. Oh, there was out in Forest Grove. There was a costume shop that sold some makeup supplies, sold some latex. Down in Portland, there was a joke store that sold some stuff like that too, but there really wasn't much in the Portland area for me to use as a resource. I went to Portland Community College for I think a couple of quarters, and I took like a sculpting class, a painting class, because I had never really done anything artistic before. I mean, I was raised on a farm and took care of our animals and did all that stuff. My dad woke me up early every day. But I just learned as much as I could that way. And at a time when there was no internet. Yeah. So, that was it was slim pickings. There was a time though that in the back of one of the Fangoria magazines, there was an ad for a guy named Burt Roth, who worked maybe at a time was a department head for ABC in New York. And so he was going to have a workshop, like a week-long workshop. And he advertised it in the back of this magazine. I was like, cool, I want to do that. And we kind of looked into it. It was something to kind of get my feet wet. And luckily, our family, we had family friends in New Jersey. So I stayed with them. It was like, I was 18. I would go from their house. They'd drop me off at the bus station. I would ride the bus into Port Authority, 42nd Street, New York, which at this time was pre-Disney, pre-Disneyfying of the whole area. And, it was pretty rough. I just remember getting off the bus and I was like, a little kid from Portland walking down the street and there's like hookers and strippers and drug dealers. Oh, okay, wow.
Culture shock.
I've seen this in every movie. I did that. I walked up to his apartment and for a week, we learned how to do a bald cap. We learned how to do lay hair work for beard. And then some simple, like flexing wounds and gashes and stuff like that. Black eye. It has some skill like that.
Wow.
But it's funny because I think there were about 5 or 6 of us crammed into his apartment, and we were doing this stuff. And
amazing.
Yeah, I do. One guy I kept in touch with, named Jerry Gargley, and he made his way to Hollywood for a bit too, and then, but I think he actually runs. Um, he, I think he runs the Sabine School, the Douglas School of Makeup, in Pennsylvania. So he's still kind of
Wow.
teaching, but I mean, that was enough to whet my appetite. That I think not long after that is when I packed up and California. Just kind of drove down and I found another class out of the back of the magazine.
Yes.
And the school, it was just opening. I was actually the very first person to call and inquire and sign up for the classes. Institute of Studio Makeup. And it's funny, I run into people here and there that like went to that school. I mean, I don't know how many years he was open. But yeah, it seemed like he was just starting out too. I remember bringing in one of my magazines one time, and it had like this Tom Savini for Tales from the Dark Side or something like that. He made this puppet, and he showed how he made like the hand, which was a piece of wood, plastic tubing, I think monofilament or even like weed eater line for the cable poles. Make really simple cable poles. Yeah. And you can make that. And he did that. I made one. I brought it in. He's like, oh, that's great. So then when it came time to teach the special effects portion, that's like what he taught was the hand that I brought in. I'm like, I did great.
Well, that's actually a true testament of your dedication and drive to continue to push and push and push. And going into LA, so when I met you though, we were up in Seattle. What brought you there?
Well, I grew up in the Northwest. I grew up, I grew up in Seattle a little bit in my younger years, and then junior high school was outside of Portland in Hillsborough. And then 1985 is when January 1985, packed up and had a little Chevy Sprint, little 3-cylinder Suzuki engine, Chevy Sprint, drove to LA, and I had an aunt living there, stayed with her, went to the school. And then from there, you just kind of, meet people, or hope you meet the right people, and just kind of find your way.
Wow.
And then I ended up, many, many years later, moving back to Seattle. That kind of felt like home. And I was married at the time, had kids, and, LA's not a great place to raise kids. And so it's good about that. Yeah.
Are you in LA right now then?
Yep. I'm in Burbank right now. So I have a place up in Seattle still.
Let's talk about makeup real quick, just so my understanding, because I don't know anything about it, but it sounds like there's kind of the creature design is what you were doing also. That's kind of blended into makeup and special effects, or is it just special effects makeup? Is that what we're calling it, or what's the term?
I guess there's different terms for it. I mean, a lot of people like to use makeup effects. I don't anymore, just because I think it conjures up a vision, and it's usually a bunch of guys with heavy metal T-shirts carrying blood and tubing and buckets on the set. It's like that's big. Right. It is, and that's all stuff that we do. It's we all start there. There's like this evolution, like that shirt that shows the evolution of man. It's like trying to figure out a way to do that. The evolution of a makeup artist, because you start out doing blood and guts, and then you get into something else, and then it's creatures and animals. Then you kind of veer towards realism and old age and just like real or realistic type stuff. And create that stuff. But I don't know. I've actually my title I think I settled on was specialty makeup and character design.
Character design, that makes more sense. Yeah, because versus like a typical person would be like a makeup artist on set who just says powder and eyeshadow and foundation and all that. But you're
the whole thing. Yeah, this is the whole thing. I'm like I've had to I learned that at that school, that first school.
Yeah,
I learned all of that, and then I veered myself heavily towards prosthetic makeup. It's actually maybe another word for it. And I just, I dipped all toes into that pond and just sunk everything there. because that's what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't really want to do beauty. And then later, in my career, I was able to kind of kind of bring the two together with some shows, especially with like Black White, Mystique, and doing stuff like that. Guardians of the Galaxy. We did some things, where I had to kind of rewrite some of that stuff. So I'm still very insecure about it. It's like,
what?
I mean, it's I can do prosthetic makeup all day long. I can paint all day long, but doing somebody's eyeshadow, and I'm like, strip lashes. Strip lashes. No, that'll take.
Before we dive into the questions, I ask everyone this, and it's interesting to hear different perspectives. And from your resume with all the actors that you've worked with and being on set and watching them perform, in your perspective, what makes a good actor?
Being humble. I mean, knowing really who they are, I think, is something, just because it's something that at the end of the day, it's just like we're all still going to be people, right? It's just, they're celebrities in our world and time. They get elevated to a different kind of a deity or, a monarchy, some kind of, different class in our class system. But they're people. And I think that a lot of people, it's hard. I mean, I guess good actor or great actor or good human. I mean, because there's all kinds of different classifications, I guess. Because, a good actor, maybe you just got to be tormented. You just have to have a lot of just things and shit in your closet that you got to just try and, deal with and get out somehow, so you can touch all those things that you need to get out. Ricky Schroeder and crying and stuff like that. I don't know what his childhood was like, but I think he can still like cry at the top of that. But I mean, it's funny because I there are times when I get, I think, lost in watching something I've worked on. I mean, not often, because I'm usually just scrutinizing,
Yeah.
But I think just getting lost in watching somebody portray a character.
Who did that for you?
There was like Robin Williams did that.
Wow.
When we were doing a Bicentennial Man, there were some moments in that script. I remember reading it, just thinking, "Oh, this is going to be, these are going to be some moments that are going to be like, oof." And they hit a couple of them. It was just like, for us to just want to sink ourselves wholeheartedly and believe, it's pretty amazing. I guess you got to be a good actor to be a good actor. There you go. Yeah. I mean,
gotta know the craft.
But I think, experience.
Yeah.
I think that has to do with just like experience. And
have you ever dealt with a bad actor?
Well, I guess define bad actor. I mean, because there's, bad actors, or there's bad attitudes, and
I always think of like collaboration wise when it comes down to collaboration.
Every once in a while you'll come across one who just, especially in my world, it's just like sometimes we're the last person they want to see is like, okay, there's a guy with the glue, great,
right,
all over my face. It's 5 a.m.
Yeah,
and so there's always that. But then if there's somebody who will allow themselves to experience what's happening, there's some people that like really get into it. I remember on Button, there was an actor who was like, "Oh, you guys put the neck too low today," so it's like it feels really tight, and stuff like that. And I remember Mahershala, he put a piece on him, and he was just like, "Yeah, I kind of like that," because it reminds me. There's a physical. Because otherwise, I'll just be doing this because I'm only 40. I'm not supposed to be 60 yet. So he's then he feels that there's like So it's neat when somebody will. They want to hold on to something and be like, "Oh, I don't like this loop," make it different, or somebody goes, "No, that's the thing." Josh Lucas was like that too on A Beautiful Mind. He was like, "Give me this stuff to take this." We did a makeup test. We were in New York, and then He just he wanted to wear it home. He said, "We all have to take it off." I'm like, "We'll take it off," you know. And he's like, "No, no, no." I'm like, "I want to go." And he went home for like 3 hours and just played. I guess he just looked in the mirror. He said he sat there and just like moved his face and didn't even. And he told me the next day. He said, "Yeah, I realized that." He's like, "I'm only 35. I'm like, look, I just smile. It doesn't work." So I had to like Brown kind of like do something and then smile, you know? So it was neat that he, you know, did that work.
Yeah. It's like, it's a tool.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can use it or you can fight it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and if you use it properly, it'll shine. All right. So I got some good questions.
Yeah.
Got some good questions for you.
Okay.
So your career spans both iconic and contemporary films. How has the evolution of special effects makeup influenced your approach over the years?
I mean, it changes all the time. I mean, you know, the technology of makeup effects has changed. I mean, when I started, everyone was doing, you know, we were all doing foam latex. And then there's other materials that came in. This hot melt thing came in, you know, which was toxic and deadly and just dangerous because you had to like, you had these pressure cookers that you could do woks, like these electric woks that it was hot melt. Like the old kids, remember like the thingy, I remember when we were kids, used to make like that little hot melt thing with like bugs and a tongue and stuff. It was like a whole Pressman kind of, I don't know who made it, Milton Bradley. But
Did they get sued?
It's crazy. Like they sold it back then. But it's this material that you melt it down. I think they make dildos out of it. but you melt it down. You could color it, but I mean it's like beyond boiling hot, like past boiling hot. It's like hot lava, and you know, yeah, it wasn't pretty. But then it was like this. But it was really cool when it was done. I mean, really flexible. It was stretchy. I mean, you're like, I could probably have like a tube this big and crawl into it, you know, and just do this, you know. But yeah, that limitation thing, if it tore, it tore. That was it. Done.
Wow.
But it was cool. You know, people were using gelatin. I mean, you know, now we're using, you know, stuff like prosthetic transfers and silicone prosthetics, you know, which which game changers. You know, Filmmaker was great. There's some things about silicone that are nice. It provides a different skin value, translucency, translucency. And
I would think that would be a huge key, right?
Sometimes, I mean, sometimes it is because I think people. I said that the way I did because some people they get fixated that no, you know you can see into it. It's just like, well, yeah, but can you really see into me? I mean, you know, I have depth because you have all this color, you know, and we can see that depth, but it's not depth, you know. You know, it's like I can see it past a quarter inch into your skin, and that's what like people kind of got caught up with that. So that was like a transparency versus translucency versus just live with dead, which kind of spawned a whole different way of painting that I do now. And yeah, I mean, some of the stuff is I mean, it's come a long way. It's really cool. I mean, prosthetic transfers that you know that we do, which the Got Flesh line is made of. I mean, it's just made of glue. They're really low profile, low relief. They can, you know, they go on like the kid's tattoo with water, and they'll last all day. They'll stay on. So I kind of re-envisioned the Drax makeup for Guardians of the Galaxy 2. That's what I used was these transfers because it just worked great.
That's what about if someone has like an allergy, if they're allergic to something, like how does that work?
You know what? We have had that. I remember I was working with Dave Anderson for his studio on Star Trek Into Darkness. And you remember there's that really beautiful alien on the bridge, like Conquer Girl or something like that. She's like really striking. And I think the actress was somebody who was like on the verge to everything. It was like, how did we get this far? That we have
Yeah.
prosthetics built for you. You did it like this. And I mean, all this stuff. I think at the end, I remember like I was doing Benedict's makeup, I was doing some other stuff, and David, I think he was working with Margaret Prentice at the time. He's got doing that makeup. I think they ended up with honey. They would like they would smear honey on her and just kind of like make it really sticky, and and
Yeah.
it would hold on enough, then they'd go back in and do stuff. But like, yeah,
Wow.
they couldn't use any glue on her because they just tear her skin.
Wow.
Yeah. And, then there's also, what is it? One of those, it's one of those acne medicines. Not acne, there's this prescription acne medicine that thins your skin.
Oh yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I remember, is that Accutane? I said that once, but.
No, I think that's a shot.
Oh, yeah. It'll make grease, oily discharge.
Yeah.
In the lawyer's notes. I think, anyway, we had, when I was in Seattle doing a project, Rooftop, Mine something. We shot down in Enumclaw and stuff like that. One of the actresses was on that and didn't tell us. And we could put prosthetics on. And then trying to take the prosthetics off, and it was just like, oh, yeah.
Oh,
luckily it was like, it wasn't too bad. And it was like, the place where arm, but luckily nothing on her face.
Yeah, Accutane does that though. I heard stories where it makes your skin very thin, and it was yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there is a whole different side to the makeup world that that I got to circumvent, but to be a beauty makeup artist or a cosmetologist, come up through there and you get licensed, to take all the safety courses, and you do all that stuff. You learn more about that stuff.
Did you have to ever study anatomy?
I didn't. No. Well, I mean, not formally, but it's. I mean, again, no internet. And at the time, if you wanted to be good, you just had to really apply yourself, and it's hard because, I mentor a bunch of people today, and you're trying to, it's not so much the walk 5 miles in the snow kind of talk, but it's it's like, no, you guys don't know how lucky you guys got it, and how easy you guys are. You guys open up your fucking computer and start studying, because you guys got the world at your fingertips here. And there's no reason not to know anything. I like one of my mentees. There was a thing that we were going to do on a Friday, right? And I think that we knew for 2 weeks it was coming up. And like on the day, we started doing it, and it was just like, okay, I know that all of you guys, when you went to makeup school, you guys would have done this once, and now we're doing it. And I'm like, did anybody YouTube it? Did anybody refresh the memory? Nope, nobody. Okay, and it's like, yeah, amazing.
So they just waited last minute.
Yeah, and then it's just, I guess, kind of just expecting me to, drive you all home, which, sure, but I mean, it's mindset's very different. So I think, back in the day, you just devour all you could, so that when you showed up, you knew it. It wasn't you acted like you knew it. You knew it.
You had to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. When I made it to Hollywood, and we were coming, I came up in like, I think it was kind of like that third wave. There are these different waves of makeup effects. Just people that like through. I think there's like the third or fourth wave in the mid '80s, and it's kind of like the rock and roll time. That was like when, the big shops were in town. Stan Winston was like, all these big shops were going, and everybody's making, makeup movies. Yeah. Monster movies, whatever. And, it's a good time. But you had to apply yourself.
You can't just wait for someone to go, oh, you over there.
Yeah.
Right? You're basically going. You're pushing in.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just doing, and just do, hopefully somebody notices, because you really, at that time, I think that's part of it, though, is that people now do it for the look. where we just did it because we wanted to do it. And we just do it.
Yeah.
And then somebody saw, hey, they give more drama how you do now, and you just kind of strong shots. But you just did it, and it wasn't for a look, a like, or a poster, anything. It's just do it, just do the work.
So working with characters as unique as those as like the Mandalorian or Guardians of the Galaxy, what is the balance between creativity and meeting the director's vision? How do you find that?
I mean, pretty much. I mean, I guess it's a thing you just hone. I mean, you got to listen, and at the end of the day, it's his vision. You're a pair of hands to make it happen. And hopefully, there is a translation, that it's a different language that we all kind of pick up on. When somebody's describing something, or they're not describing something because they know what they don't want to see, but they don't know what they want to see. But so you just try and do the best you can, really. I mean, but it really is sharing what they want. With the Star Wars universe, there's certain canon, so that, everything is going to be in the world of something, I mean, Boba Fett was a hard one because nobody ever saw him, so that was, okay, we got to come up with that. You make it interesting. It just didn't look like Freddy Krueger, or it didn't look like, Uncle Fester or something like that. It was just, had to be something still unique. And it's just playing. I think a lot of it is having built a library of same thing for actors. It's a whole life experience of stuff that I've done or seen, sought out, didn't seek out, lots of things that you can't unsee. And, you have to log that stuff away. I am that old guy now that talks about the younger generation, but there's a different, there's a difference. There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect. So it's like, do you remember, like in Cumberbatch's Sherlock Holmes, or that TV show Sipe, right? It's just like, there's always like a scene where it's just like the guy walks into a room and it's like, and everything's just clocked, right? It's just like, he sees everything, and then he's putting together the stories as he's, doing whatever, making a sandwich, but he's got the room in his head. He knows who these people are. That's what's missing. Because that's something that I know that does. I'll do a lot. Like I walk into a room, I can't do it like that. They portray, but it's just like I'll pick things up. Like, why is he wearing that belt with those shoes?
Right,
or something. But it's something that you can recall. Whether it's I'm going through Life magazine, it's like, Rwanda. Okay, let's go past that. Okay, now I'm gonna, but I've got that in my head, and I'm going to hang on to it. It's somewhere in there. And actually, there is something in it. And I use it almost every day in some of the makeup segment. People aren't that thoughtful viewing the world. And
they're not aware of their surroundings, and they're not taking it in. They're really just kind of...
Yeah. And it's so easy to get some answers this way instead of trying to figure out the answer. So, that's part of the muscle that ain't working. I mean, I don't know. Is that kind of what critical thinking is? I mean, is that a part of that?
And I think it's part also. I think it's process of creativity. I think as an actor, I think one of the main tips that I learned that is still relevant today is to go out and just watch people.
Yeah.
Watch people. Watch how they walk. Watch where their heads are, with their posture. What they're doing, obviously most of them are going to be doing this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how are they walking? What's influencing them?
Well, what's that? You must have it's the right leg must be, or, it's just like, to not just like go through the world and just be like, whatever, but just kind of like sit there and just like, and then at the same time, work the story in their head. Not just throw down the stairs when you're just trying to say, and you can like make up something.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of mental play, generational maybe. That's what's going to make a good actor. That's what's going to make a good makeup artist. That's going to make a good artist.
Do you have when you have your mentees? Do you have a rule and say put your phones down and let's just focus and be?
Sometimes, because I started with a different rule, and it was. when I start talking, if I'm going to start talking about something, it's just like somebody better be recorded because I've had
Yeah.
seen people go. I can see people start to write stuff down, and it used to be weird. That would be the thing. Keep a notebook, little notepads, and you start writing stuff down. Okay, technology has jumped this far ahead, so it's just like record. I bought some of them recorders. They didn't use them, and then I just and after a while, just because I would like say something, I'd walk away and I'd come back and it's like, oh, that's not at all what I said to you. Okay. Now we've got 4 hours to catch up on. So if they have their phones, it's just like, start recording. And, you cannot write as fast as I can talk. So don't write it down.
Yeah.
And half the time I'm going to meander. And it's going to go into some other stories, but it's all going to, it's going to come back to and or relate to a bunch of the stuff we're talking about.
Right.
And techniques, art stuff, something I did a long time ago, something that I want to do. But it's the phone right now in this place. It's like, record this or videotape it. Listen to it on your way home. One out of you, as soon as you walk out this gate, you aren't thinking about this anymore. And that's the wrong thing to do. You need to be, play it again. Like you say, okay, learn those things. And then, get home, throw it up to Chat GPT, transcribe it into notes, put it in your notes on the phone, and now you start a book of all of this stuff. So you can just, refer back to. There's some tools now that are pretty, pretty amazing. And that isn't my tech tip. But but it's a pretty damn good one, I think, for anybody who's working in any kind of a job where you've got to do stuff and someone's going to tell you, okay, here are the steps. Do that. Videotape and then just transcribe, have a book, and it's all there. It's just done. And it's somebody else's words. You didn't, it's not your interpretation. If I come back later and say that's not what I said, you go, yes, you did. Okay. So everybody, please prove me wrong. I just want to know that you guys are doing this. It's funny because a lot of people, I think there's a willingness to just let go of the reins and just make sure that the boss is always going to tell me what to do. Okay, but then there's the other side of it, where it's like, why aren't I, moving up fast? Or why aren't I doing things? Look, there's no initiative.
Yeah, there has to be that curiosity. I think curiosity is really a key thing. Is when you're just curious, you want to know, so you just do, and you keep on doing and trying and
like, how does this
failing
and work?
Yeah,
you're telling me about. Maybe that's the thing too that the interwebs don't do is that you don't have to be curious anymore. You can
just look it up. Yeah. Let me ask you this. So you've collaborated on projects with legendary actors like Sylvester Stallone, Christian Bale, Nicolas Cage. How does working with actors of that caliber impact your approach to makeup design?
Well, we can name some other actors just because I know that with like Stallone, he was in Guardians. I didn't touch him. Christian, he for Love and Thunder. Odd Studios, the guys down there did a fantastic makeup on, and when they came to the U.S. to do some reshoots, they asked me if I would, help take care of that. So it was fun. So at that point, it was already done. It was making
okay. So you're just following the routine that they've created, the workflow.
Yeah,
okay,
and just trying to make it match what those guys did, because they're great artists. And the other one you named was.
But Christian Bale, Nicolas Cage?
Nicolas Cage, yeah. Cage, that was for Renfield. A friend of mine, since recently, he had the show, and so he had me there helping him out. Talking about collaboration, Christian did some great designs on that show. Some stuff I think that will never get the true credit that it needs, deserves. But it was shocking that Cage was willing to do it all. It was, because you kind of think, okay, Nicolas Cage, and it's like there was did you see the movie Renfield?
I haven't yet. Now you're making me want to see it.
Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, it's just silly fun, and it's kind of like it's not no, well, that's pretty serious. I know, but it's just over the top. Guys get their arms ripped off and beating him with it, and then like spears him with the other arm, and it's like it's just over the top. It's just a lot of good fun stuff. But
is it hard to balance horror and humor?
No. I mean, there's always something that's funny about somebody falling down, or
Yeah.
It's funny because isn't it like laughter is almost our first impulse when some 80-year-old guy like slips on the ice and we're like, oh no.
You okay?
But yeah, I mean, there was this makeup in there. We should call it Picasso because it was like just all misshapen. It's like when he's regenerating. Like he kind of comes into frame like he's like a third regenerated, and he's just a mess. And I mean, there's a lot of makeup. There's a lot of prosthetics. There's a lot of stuff, and in case I think Christian suggested maybe a body double. Because it would be a lot of if you're a C performer, we can maybe get somebody really tiny, and that way you can build up on him, and have different anatomy that way. If they want to get it, we know we can do it.
That's awesome.
Okay. And then as he was doing stuff, and it was great. Like, it's funny hearing him on set. Because he's just like, I was just pushing. And then, going to places that who knows where he's going to go, but it all works.
What about working on the Terminator, Dark Fate? How do you approach modern makeup techniques with legacy techniques? How does that change?
Legacy, you mean as in the past? The legacy that helps with that. See, I worked on a couple. I worked on Salvation. I did Genesis. I worked on that one, and then Dark Fate. I did some reshoots on that. Of course, they had that shit. It's interesting because even though things have progressed, we want to stay true to that impetus of what the first thing was. You can't go too far from, but then it's just, it's just not going to feel right. So, but I mean, all those scripts, there was some fun in those. I thought Dark Fate. I really thought that the script is good. It gives homage to the first one. It's like you kind of skip over. You saw 1, 2, and then Dark Fate, and then you're good. Because it wrapped everything up nicely, and it kind of it played to what Cameron even had thought. It's like that they would grow old because of the tissue and stuff. So I just thought it was fun to bring back Linda Hampton. And it was this really cool designs and easy again with these skank scars and shit. Yeah, it was good fun. But that was because I looked at Arnold one, and I mean, funny thing is that like he knows his stuff. He knows what it is. We did stuff with him in Genesis, a lot of stuff on the Genesis, but he knows who the characters are. Which is, of course, he is.
Yeah.
I remember I think the stunt coordinator, one of that made with Mike and his crews came in, and while we were doing it, he was like, "Oh, I just wanted to mention a couple of things for his fight scene." And he was like, "What fight?" And then, you and John Connor and Eagle John Connor. So you do this, and do the block, and he's like, "No." He's like, "What?" And he goes like, "I'm a Terminator. Why am I going to block a punch? Why am I going to block a kick? It's just take it."
Yeah.
I don't think that's a preservation thing. I don't have preservation. I'm like, I have to kill this thing. And so, I got to kill that thing, and whatever's in my way, it's in my way. So, and I just thought that was like, wow, that's actually, yeah. So then the guys kind of, oh, yeah, okay, let's rethink this.
Yeah.
No.
He's got it. He's got it down.
I mean, that was like, remember, it was like that amazing scene with like the T-1000, like you and Robert just like going down that hallway, just like wham, wham.
Oh, that was awesome.
And it was just, yeah, it was like, yeah, you have like these two things that are just, you can't feel pain, and they can't, it's just.
I think I was a kid, and I wasn't old enough to buy a ticket, and I literally went to a stranger in line, and I said, "Will you buy me a movie ticket?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I get to go see it.
I'm sure people looking around now for like, ask, somebody to take you for the police. You trying to pump the kid?
So tell me about the Emmy-winning work on Black White. You explored makeup's role in addressing social themes.
Yeah.
How did you approach designing makeup for a project that required both realism and sensitivity?
Becoming sensitive.
Yeah.
I mean, it really actually was. It was one of the key things in doing that makeup was what makes a white person white and what makes a black. I mean, that's just it. So I have to change this person into that person at first glance. What's going to make me think that person is what I want them to be, right? So, I mean, so we just, kind of boils down to be like, okay, let's think of all the racist things that, where do we go? Because that's, we did so many tests and designs for like, so the white mother going to black mother. But like, it's hard because, I mean, there's certain things that just characteristics that just make it up. You can't, change your tone, put a wig on her, it's Italian. Because because, and you could only go, because this reality show was, it was going to be, I mean, like walk around the street, full light, no control over anything, walk up to people and talk with them, and they were not supposed to know this reason, and then nobody got, like the old days, and they were like glasses, a beard, and a turtleneck. We couldn't do that.
Right.
So it was okay, so we had to go very little prosthetics. I mean, the only prosthetics we used were nose joints for the white people going black, just to to add some shape for the nose, maybe a nose bridge for the black people going white. Because again, but it's people can say it's insensitive, but it's just like, but it's also just like, it's just an examination of, for me, it's examination of what are we, who are, but that's the thing. And Black Mother was my artist for some reason. And I know we gave her kind of like a kind of like a Sherry Belafontaine hotel kind of short afro. And, which because, and at that time, Louisa Anthony was very involved in that show. She's black. And she just goes, when somebody walks up behind this person, they need to know, in their head, know who this person for what who they are. And that was kind of like the barometer. It's like, okay, without seeing their face, how do we make this work? How did this go? So that was like, got crap for that one. I think someone told me, he's like, no self-respect in black women would have an accident. They did.
Have you seen these I don't know, TikTokers, Instagram, these girls that do the makeup like totally reshapes their face?
Yeah.
Shading
it's
and all that?
Amazing. I mean, it's also Saturday night going to the club. You got some people out there doing that. Yeah. I mean, it's an illusion. I mean, it is hard. I mean, it is funny because it is like painful.
Right.
Very thick makeup. But it works for what it is. But you also too, like you go to the club and you see someone like that, they're like sweaty and it's like
right,
melting.
So with superhero films like Avengers: Infinity War, how do you adapt your work to accommodate the heavy physical demands of actors and high intensity scenes?
it's tough because you also have to kind of regulate that with not doing, because they're, like the prosthetic transfers, that stuff is pretty hard. And a lot of makeup, especially like the second or third day wearing it. As you're wearing it and you're cleaning them up at the end of the day, so like oils, natural oils in the skin is just getting just stripped out. And so we start putting stuff on their face, their shield, skin saver, some things like that, so that you can barriers to put on their skin. We don't want them to moisturize, so these are kind of safe in the way that they'll go down and then they'll dry, so we can still relieve them. But it kind of then it gives us a weak point, because otherwise, the first time we did Dave Bautista's makeup for Drax, we went out there and makeup test, and I think it took us 2 hours to put in the makeup. It's 2.5 hours to take him out.
Just because you're being gentle, right?
No.
Is that part of it? No?
The stuff just sticks really well.
Oh, so you're like just...
we're like, towels that we're scrubbing. And I mean, it was good. It was bad. Because when Dave went home, and I think for like a week, he still had like these red marks on his skin that were like the Drax, skin tattoos that were with the scars, scarification that, within the design. Just hit before up. So we had to I had to rethink that. But I just thought of different ways to break it, So that's like, again, critical thinking experience level is doing, recalling everything. Because then, I had producers stop, calling us, and at that time I was working for Legacy Effects, not anymore, but now they're like, he's not, he was really happy with the makeup because it actually he looked better. I mean, he was so happy with it. Actually just out David White, those guys, he is true for the first public. So it's really cool to kind of help jump into those shoes and, try and fill them. I think we did well. But yeah, it was like, okay, how do I break this makeup? What I want to break.
Wow.
And then
I would have never thought of that.
Yeah. So you're just
applying it, then you're like thinking, well, how do I take it off? How do I break it up?
So, but, for any, you probably know when you're shooting, when you're out, what are the two things that, makeup artist, the hair person, or even the actor wearing a big, thick jacket? The first thing that you hate, the lights, the heat, right? So I was like, okay, I might be this enemy of the heat, body heat. So we bring his core temperature up. So we talk production and getting a couple of saunas. And so at the end of every day, we would put makeup removers, shaving cream, and stuff all over him, which broke down the makeup. I adjusted the kinks and put additives in there that would break the makeup as well. And then he would go into this sauna for 20 minutes. His body temperature would elevate, and he would start sweating the makeup.
Wow.
So then there were some days that we got his makeup off in like 20 minutes. And it was just,
nice.
Yeah. So
that's a good tip.
It's just, yeah. But go brace makeups.
So let's go back to Benjamin Button. What did you learn on that set that has influenced your work on future projects? What did you carry away?
There was, I think that was the prosthetic transfer technique. There was one that Christian Tinsley developed for us at Captive Audience. Actually, for first film was Master Commander with Russell Crowe. Because they had a scene where Crowe was going to undress and we're jumping off the side of like an 1800s ship in the ocean and out. And he was supposed to have all these stars on. What do we come up with? And like Christian, light went off, and he came up with this whole system that changed the world. And these prosthetic transfers, they're made out of glue, and they just stick. Good stuff. But people, when you're using them, all over as much as you could. But it was on that one, the picture, it had a very specific look of Benjamin that he wanted. Kind of like this Andrew Wyeth kind of, like this old, just like salt flats, crags, and just, it's not, you didn't want like a typical old age makeup where you had like all of the gravity is like shifting everything and pulling everything down. You just wanted like some of that age to happen, but it's really just like deep reset, Sharpay, wrinkles in the face. And, there was a whole bunch of makeup that's done, and we finally went to using traditional like either foam or silicone prosthetics. We finally went to using some of the transfers and be able to achieve what he was looking for. So something that was not going to be really thick on the face, but it would look like there was depth. That was one and two, where it was just kind of like we kept saying it, and so it was like we definitely started learning, looking at translation. We had consultants who kind of kept taking things in a different direction, and it's now way you learned it all. We kept saying all of this, and a lot of it's very subtle, So, and that's the thing too, is that like when you look at like old age is hard.
It's more than just drawing wrinkles or
yeah.
hard.
I mean, because scary monsters. If you do something that's not right on the realism, everybody knows what that looks like. Everybody knows,
right.
So it's like,
okay,
but it just doesn't look quite right because it's too, it's too pudgy. It's too fat. I mean, just something. Right? There's always something that can betray it. It's not moving quite right because the actor's face isn't 60 years old and it's not there. It's like going back to stuff because realism it's hard. And so that was one that really made me black, white, and now I'm really kind of rethink like how you do things on instrumental layers, using levels to achieve something even slowly. It's not these big jumps, we all loved Little Big Man and stuff like that back in the day, but like that makeup today, it's not really necessarily why. Because it was just so big and over the top. But like with the beginning days of makeup, really, sure, so it's still a great makeup. Just you compare that next to say Salieri nowadays, and it's two completely different things done by the same person.
What would you say is the best constructive criticism that you've ever received?
Looks like makeup. That one almost broke me. Looks like makeup. Yeah.
That's it.
The producer on Black White, because he, luckily, we were very lucky that he knew how important these makeups were. Because if they walked into a room and they looked like makeup, that was done. Show's done. It's not going to sell.
Yeah.
It worked. So, the pressure of that, knowing that, the whole show hinges upon this. If this show gets made, it hinges upon this. So it's luckily we have a good, healthy R&D time, more than I've ever had on any project.
Wow.
And we were just doing everything possible, everything. And, we soon found out like full prosthetics just weren't going to work, because it's just naked. And that was the thing, is we would do stuff and he would come by like every 2 weeks and we would have like, okay, Friday's the test day, he's coming in. And then, he literally would walk in, put his glasses up, looks like makeup. And like it.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's funny. Breaking my own boss back.
It makes me think of Coming to America, the Eddie Murphy scene.
Yeah. What was fun? This scene. That's a good movie. That's good.
The barbershop when Eddie Murphy's like the old white guy.
Yeah, all of it. He's awesome. Between him and Arsenio. Yeah, we all of it.
Yeah. And I think Arsenio said that he even got fooled at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, yes, they had to do. They did Eddie up to say I was like the old guy, and then they would have somebody else being made up as the old guy because Eddie was the other guy, and you have all the angles you got to shoot, so make people. It's fun. Yeah, you never know who's wearing under makeup.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who wants to pursue this path, this
Learn
career?
computers.
What was that?
Learn computers.
Learn computers?
Yeah. Now we can go into the dark part of the podcast. Yeah, I would say listen to this whole podcast again. Stop it right here and go back and listen to everything that we've just talked about. Critical thinking, paying attention, all that stuff. If you cannot do that,
this is not the job for you.
It's not the job. I think this industry is not the job.
Yeah.
Really think about it. It's in everything. From like being a good prop master. It's just like knowing what a 1492, whatever thermophone is, and what the handle is on a gramophone. What it's supposed to look like. It's like you have to be that person. I would tell people now, some communities, it's like, this isn't a passion. This is obsession. So you really have to, because if you do this, and you're just like, I'm doing it, and then, okay, it's 5 o'clock, and then okay, that's who you are, and I know who you won't be. It's things that, go back and listen to all this again.
All the tips that you were given before.
Yeah, it really is going to be that. Because you aren't able to do a lot of that stuff. You're in a career. It depends on I don't know. Maybe people don't. Maybe people are okay doing that. I don't even do that. So
what about when you look at your peers, the people that you came up with that you've known, right? You said one person has a school that teaches. What? How are the others? Do a lot of people just drop out? Do they stop?
No, you know what? I came up at a good that wave that I came up in. Everybody's still working. A lot of people are still working. There's sure, people who are going to drop out. People, maybe don't make it to the place that they thought they would be. And that's a whole other subject too, because it's like mentees. All these people who come here. One of the first things they start talking about, I'm going to get the union. I might get the union. Yeah, why? That's great, but don't think about that. It's because it's a different mindset. Because like you can get into a union, you can be a great makeup artist, right? You can be a great makeup artist, you will be sought after. Right? Nobody, even if you're not in the union, they will get you to work on whatever, and they'll pull all the strings. Everything will happen, but if you're good. There are a lot of people in the union that aren't good. There are a lot of people. I know where I'm at. There's like the highs and the lows. I'm in the middle somewhere. I think that's about where I'm at. Because I'm good at what I do. I'm bad at strip lashes. It takes me an hour. And I will excel at other things. It's a thing where you just got to do it for it. Think about the posts. I don't know how many posts I stopped. People are like, hey, can I take a picture of that? No. Yeah. Why? Why are you going to do that? I literally just like, I had a mentee, was scoping on something here and said, hey, do you mind if I take a picture of that? So I can post it. No. Why?
This isn't your dinner.
Yeah. I'm like, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? She's like, well, show people what I'm doing. It's like, okay, well, it's a sculpture. It's supposed to be a thing. You got 3 pieces of clay on there. I go, how about you wait until you've done it, you molded it, you got it on the actor, and then take a picture of that.
Yeah.
Then you're not, it's like that whole weird, like the dopamine fake. This is who I want to be versus this is who I am.
Yes. Yes. Get to the finish line.
Yeah, just do that. It's and the same thing with like the union. Again, it's just it's just like the mindset. Just come here, just work. Be really meticulous and good. Pay attention. Show up on time. Show up early. Work late. All those things. Anything. Just focus on what you think you believe your dream is. That's the thing you want to figure out first. Do that. In anything you will have success. But if you just kind of, low hanging fruits out there and everybody will grab that. Like,
Yeah.
it's the one thing. You know, guy Eric Thomas,
Yeah.
the inspirational speaker.
Yes.
He does this. I think he's from Detroit. He does this bit where he talks about a guy going to a guru and he wants to learn from the guru how to be successful, right?
Yes.
Guys
Comes in a suit.
Meet me at the beach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I used to play that in my classes sometimes. You know, when I found that, I was like, okay, this is it. You know, it's just like the whole thing takes him out into the water, and you keep going out there, and he pulls the guy in the water and just dumps his head down.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, when you were underwater, what were you thinking? What was the only thing you were thinking? It's like, need air. I'm gonna breathe. When you want this as much as that thought you want to breathe, you'll be successful. But that's the intensity I think that you have to have. I mean, think about an athlete. You know, what makes somebody do the Spartan run? What makes somebody the CrossFitters do the other thing? What makes, you know, a football player that's 300 pounds run 40 seconds? You know, it's just like, it's the intensity. I
don't think he's thinking of Nike.
No. He's thinking, I don't want to go back to where I'm from. You know, he's thinking of everything. It's like, I came for this. This is my chance. So, and that's the thing. It's like, that's your everyday thought. This is my chance. Every day. You know, I was all these little stories, and, you know, things they tell these kids, you know, and it's just like, work every day like it was your first. Because you showed up on time and you were like, you know, you listened, you were attentive, and you were everything. Every day. Work like that. Work like you got to pee. Right? It's just like trying to keep the keys in the door. You just like, you know, just go fast. You know, it's just like do it. Go sit down. Yeah. It's just like work with purpose. You know, work with intensity.
What you're saying is reminiscent to what's happening in the corporate world. I've read some articles where you have a lot of the early generations coming in, and it's very similar to what you're saying. There's just a lack of drive. There's a lack of creativity. There's that waiting around, not trying to figure things out, the lack of curiosity, and they're just like, click.
Yeah.
I'm at work.
It's interesting. I've heard too that like those models coming out that like, there were generations of like the old timers that were getting booted because they just wanted to bring in like the new young people at $15 an hour or whatever it was. But then now they had a whole army of people that just, you know, they didn't have the drive. They didn't have the wherewithal. They didn't have the knowledge. Now like some of the old timers are getting pulled back in, you know, and it's like, oh, man, hang on to those people. Those are the ones, you know, you don't have to train them. That's funny that I think corporate people, the higher ups in the corporate world, don't understand that. It is so weird to see that happen. Like, you're smart enough. You should see that. You know what's going to happen when you bring in, you know, people that are entitled and, you know, they don't know. I had a friend of mine who had a company, a visual effects company, and he was bringing in some people. I think like after the first month, one of them came to him and this guy goes, "Whew, I didn't realize how hard this was going to be." And it was like visual effects stuff, you know, cleaning up blemishes or something. And, you know, it was like, oh, yeah, it's almost 8 hours. Yeah,
it was 8 hours.
You know, and then like at some point, the guy came back and it was just like, he felt that he deserved a raise and less hours. And it was like, and all I do is think about like that crying Starbucks kid. And it's like, what? Why?
That is hilarious.
I know.
Oh my God.
It's sort of hilarious, but then it's like,
we're doomed.
These people are going to be running our government soon. Or whatever. You know, it's just like, I love this. You know, all these people will come back to haunt me at some point. They'll find me. It's like the girl who was with time blindness. Have you ever seen that one? She had time blindness. So you cannot fire me because I have time blindness, just because I can't show up to work on time. He's like, what? What are you talking about? Who gave that? In some book somewhere? It's like, the excuses that people make themselves is amazing. like, can you imagine? Like, I would have got the shoe upside my head if I
Oh
would
yeah.
my parents, with a wooden spoon. Here you go.
Right.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Wow.
fine.
That just blows my mind.
I know it's funny. I mean, be insensitive.
Brian, what else what do you have coming up? Anything coming up in the near future that you're working on?
No. Yeah, no. I mean, where the industry is right now. Yeah, we're all kind of wondering now. It's been, I mean, COVID knocked everybody out of kilter.
Yeah.
And then we started to come back, and then the strikes happened. We had last year was actors, directors, writers, which went on for like 10 months, 11 months. I mean, it was, really was not good. And it's always, like red lettered with, like that. I think it was some producer being interviewed and saying, I'm sure like he got an ass kicked somewhere. Somebody saying just like, well, what this week, well, you guys just to like, your mortgages to like, you got up your homes and then really people come back and negotiate with you.
Right.
Fuckers.
Right. Yeah.
That's pretty evil. That's like, that's not even like savvy. That's just evil. It'd be interesting to see the kind of projects that get made. I mean, sure, in hardship, I mean, everything, everywhere, I mean, what a phenomenal movie that was. The Michelle Yao, what was it, May 24, Daniels? The Jamie Curtis. I mean, what a fantastic movie, that's good movie making. I mean, that's just, it's different. I mean, those guys, their head is in a different place. So, but there's just a lot of people, I think, that would just go to the easy AI streaming kind of thing that, I mean, like one of the big points of negotiation for the actors, the SAG, was background. Background actors and the producers wanted the ability, when they scan you, they get the rights to that information. People included. And it's like,
Yeah.
And so then what they do is they wanted to have a library to the point where like they didn't want to have to hire background actors, but it's putting digital. Which I don't know. To me, that seems like, isn't it just easier to put a guy in a cowboy suit, a cowboy outfit, than keep your wireframe and build? I mean, I don't. But I guess AI will probably be able to do that. The VFX module will be able to do that much faster.
Well, that's my question. That was one of my questions. How do you feel about AI when it comes to this?
I think there's some. It's a great tool. I mean, I haven't really jumped into it as far as upfront, but then there's some of it too that I think that everything that you talked about with this this podcast, I truly believe that I would have conversations with my son about this, because he is just like, oh, it's going to be amazing, meta world. We could put glasses on and like we're skiing down Everest, and it's like, yeah, but you're not. But it's going to seem like you are. But the one thing about a lot of stuff that makes it exciting is you could die. You can get hurt. And you'll never have that. Because that you're safe. So that like a lot of that thrill will be gone. Because it is like riding roller coasters. It's just like, it's like, is this going to go off the rails? So
that's why I'll only skydive in one of those air tubes.
I sunk. I like swimming like a rock. I couldn't do that flyaway. I was just like, but I think with AI, if you like prompt, I need to see the combination of a Lego man and a unicorn and roll doll. What would be their love child? And sure, AI will do that, but even though you had to come up with a creative prompt, to be the artist that actually has to think of that, why? To think of what is that? What is going to do that? That impetus, that light bulb that goes off in your head, that muscle is going to die. It's going to die. and people, I mean, it would be like, first came in looking fire, or something like that. It would just be, and it would be us looking at book. So no, this is a book. Remember those? I think that shows. I mean, like this, that part of critical thinking and curiosity is slowly getting numb. And I think it will get, it's almost going to be extracted at the use of AI. Because we really won't have to, I could say, lion bear, give me a lion bear, and it'll give me 1,000 versions of a lion bear. I didn't think of it. So, I mean, that part of creativity, that'd be weird.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely gives it's that instant gratification.
Yeah.
Not starting with a sketch or a prototype and maneuvering, massaging it, sculpting it, changing it, and going to a point where you're like, oh, this looks good.
Yeah, and then the guy comes in and goes, looks like a bear lion. I wanted a lion bear. All right.
Right. But, and then someone's going to be like, oh, fine, I'll just get it on the computer then.
It's weird because I wonder, like, it's funny, like how many movies actually become either prophetic or,
yes,
we just become that, whether we become the world WALL-E or, it's a Chinese company that actually named themselves Skynet.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that. I was like, why? Why?
Everybody watch them. Watch it.
Yeah.
And they're a computer company.
Oh my gosh.
But I think, like, I don't know. Like what's the message? What's the point? We want to all, is that what they want us to become? Is like this WALL-E world where they, just don't worry about it. We got it. Just, we'll punish your organs later.
Tell me about your mentorship program.
It is through a woman named Jamie Lee from the Last Looks podcast. She does a animated podcast. She did it. She's doing it, and she asked me if I wanted to be involved. I said, sure, I guess. But actually, and it actually goes hand in hand with something that he's a firm believer in the old. There, so, but like, there's my union. There's a lot of like the old timers have all this great knowledge of stuff that they used and they had to do with their hands. Things that techniques and stuff that are fantastic. That when they died, so and I wanted to talk to my union about they start teaching classes, so that this information can be passed, but it seems like it's something that belongs, always that good through.
At least start recording it somehow,
Yeah. It's just like something, just to see how it was done.
Yeah.
Because again, if you know how to do something, you know how to break it, you know how to make it stronger, better. But people just they don't necessarily know why they're doing. And
right.
So when she asked me about doing this, I kind of thought, okay, I know that there's a few makeup schools out here that cranking out kids every 6 months or whatever, and the knowledge that they're coming out with is base level. I mean, it's not even like work ready. They're not being taught a lot.
Didn't you have a school? You had a studio. You have a Gamut studio, right?
I mean, my illustrious garage, but it's but it makes do. I mean, so with the mentorship, I was able to, like, she's like, okay, you want to be involved? Great. She goes, I'll send you, I'll pick a couple, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna send me who you have left, who hasn't been picked. Like, I want to pick.
Yeah.
And I wish I remember what it was. I think it was a TED Talk or something that I saw where somebody was talking about that. Like these mentorships these days, they're backwards because you have all these people going up and going, "How much you be my mentor?" Like, that's not what it is. Like, a mentor is the professional or somebody who sees something. that they think that they can pull out more, they can harness, or, that person needs to kick in the ass to get themselves going because there's something there.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's supposed to be. So that, I told her, like, I'm going to pick it, And so I think I had that list for I don't know how long, and they were making a big announcement on this one day, and they sent in, sent in the information like on the last 2 days before, but because I went through and I looked at went through and just kind of did the process of elimination and everybody's Instagram. There's like everybody had to write an essay, read the essay, read the stories, and I
did they write it or did AI?
No, I think they wrote it because I would say more than 75% said, I want to be in a union, I'm going to win an Emmy, and I'm going to...
Okay.
Great. I don't know. Did anybody want to do mega parties? So I went through and I sent it in, and I picked 10 people that I figured, I was only supposed to pick one, but I figured if I was talking to one person, I might as well talk to two. And then I thought, wow, I had like 4. And I just kept growing. But
wow.
Then it was just kind of, hey, it's like having a bunch of kids going to play together, it's bothering me. But so we did that. Did that for a bit. We did a second round. But the first round we had 10. And it started out great. No, it started out great with most of them were in LA. There were 2 people that were out of state. And we kind of all, messaging back and forth. We all worked on our weekends. I said, let's get everybody in here, let's meet. And that's like, and so I came up with this thing, Turn Burn weekend. And so everybody, came out, and it was like the whole prompt was as if we got a call Friday morning. Something needs to be ready to shoot on Monday. So we have to do this stuff. And I had like this lesson plan that I had taught at the school in Australia. And it was, it had sculpting, prosthetic transfers. They're like really fascinating somewhat. So it was sculpting, mold making, running the pieces, pre-painting, and then application. And then amongst all of those steps, within that 72-hour period, I also taught them how to use an airbrush, the Pache H airbrush we want to use. The way I use it, and this is how I paint, this is how I'm going to teach everything. So
that's awesome.
Different approach than other people. And then that was also interspersed with application time. So like I have, all of my prosthetics here. So it was like everybody grab something and then I put it on something. And then, take that off and grab something else and put it on that person. So everybody, like every day, I think everybody would find something 3 times at least, 3 or 4 times. So, because I believe there's, great value in muscular doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, probably do something now, like your hands are doing something before you finish your sentence. And if you work with people like that, that happens cohesively. It's just like they start talking and you do. But so, we did that. And I wanted to, I also, like, we would go late and be like, okay, great, everybody, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
See you back at 7. Kind of like it's like working on a set.
Yeah.
Because, and the point was, you guys need to find out who you are. 2 a.m. It's cold. You're hangry. Ladies yelling at you. Somebody's saying things that you think is mean, and they don't know it's a mean man. He's talking too bad. And you need to find that out before it is an AD yelling down your face. Because you said it would take 2 hours, and you're on hour 4.
Right.
So,
Did they survive?
They survived. They survived that. They did. Yeah, we actually survived and we got done great. With all the stuff that I wanted to cover, we actually, the final thing I wanted us to do Monday morning, like, okay, now it's the application, do your final thing for some of the stuff we spoke with. But they had all moved really fast. They finished it all the night before.
Wow.
And a bunch of people came back and they just kind of, just kind of settled into it a little bit. Like the final project was too, and I thought it was fun. Everybody did an application. Like you're supposed to run your prosthetic that you sculpted and did. You're supposed to have a couple of them. So you applied it on somebody somewhere, and then take a picture, right? And then take a picture of it, and then send it to me or whatever. And they held on to it, and then I said, okay, everyone got your numbers. So we went around randomly and picked numbers out of the hat. And it's okay, you are applying that makeup. They're not going to tell you what they did. All they're going to do is send you that picture. And you have to do that makeup, right? Continuity. I was trying to see what it was. You learned about colors. You have to look at this picture that somebody took, maybe in light, maybe in the dark, and I'm trying to decipher what do I got to do because we'll see what happens. And it was a lot. It was good. It was a lot of fun. Because some people too would just like take a picture of it, like take a picture instead of like, is that a leg? Is that an arm? Is that
right?
It's like okay, or somebody who stood back far enough and took it, or then worked at something else. Stuff then okay, that's the thing, and now here are the lessons of stuff to do in the future. Which is another muscle memory and fall down first and teach yourself how to push.
Fail forward. Yes.
Yeah. And then we did the fun thing was to once all the makeups were done, then it was okay. Everybody sit back, everybody get up, let's pick apart the work. So it was become everybody went down the line and said one thing good, one thing bad. And something that they did well, something that they missed over. It started slow because people didn't want to offend them. That's how they're raised these days. And and so like by the second person, I was like, okay, this is what this is what I see, and then and just kind of picked it apart, and then after that, then everybody started to scrutinize a little bit more, and it was like, okay.
And it was a safe place that no one's.
And that was like it. It was what I wanted. What I wanted for these people was like the group of people that it's like you always need your team, your tribe, and to know that if you wanted an answer, if you really wanted somebody's thought, or you wanted to get a viewpoint, like these people aren't going to say it because it's me. They're not going to say it because they're being a dick. They're not going to. They say it because this is trust them.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing too. So you can't self-edit yourself, and you can't let somebody else do that for you. Then you're just going to make a working bubble, and means everything's good until you're not working.
Right.
So, but
what was the demographic? What age ranges and male, female?
One male, 9 females, and then I had like somebody who had been kind of hovering around. She had worked for a person who committed a lot, and I moved on, so she just kind of inserted herself into the churn and burn. And then, so yeah, it was like one male, 10 females, like
20s, early 20s, late teens.
Yeah. One of them, let's see, like the male, mid 30s.
Okay.
The one who considered himself was like maybe mid to late 30s.
Okay, so they should know better.
And they were, and then most of them were like maybe a year out of a year out of makeup school. So they like early 20s.
Okay.
And different parts of the country.
That's awesome, though.
And and pretty much too, it's like, okay, we're here. we've all gone through this. We've all gone through this, trial by
Yeah.
fire. And when I'm here, doors open. If anybody wants to work on something, it wants to, questions, there's comments, anything you want to do for me.
Yeah.
And, because it's like, safe place. It's the place to get things dirty. You don't have to get
And you're,
in your
I
apartment.
mean,
And I mean,
industry expert. That's what I would consider you. You're with somebody who's an industry expert. You might as well dive in,
right,
and see what you can learn.
Guess how many people think that? Right? Wouldn't the answer be 11? Yeah. No, it's just funny. It's all they dwindled away. I mean, there's
what?
There's 4 of them that after a year.
How long is a program?
It was, all that I was supposed to do was meet with them 4 times for an hour and discuss strategies or discuss with them, talk about the business or answer any questions that they had. I was the one who spotted into control of the world. Because to me, it's too tactical. I mean, you got to get your fingers dirty and sticky and just do so that you know how to do. There's no way you know the difference between that glue and that glue unless you glue something. So, but yeah, so I mean, it's funny because I think within the first couple of months, like half of them just dropped off the face, didn't hear from them anymore. I mean, whatever.
And all they had to do is call.
Yeah, it text.
They don't have to show up at the shop or anything. They can just connect.
Connect. Yeah. Wow. Or but also, I key code in a lockbox, and it's like, here's your key code. Here's your code for the lockbox.
The mirror in practice.
Mirror in practice. And hey, truth be told, some of them, they go out and they get jobs and they're doing whatever.
Yeah.
They got to pay their bills and they got to do some
stuff.
But it's just, it's interesting. It's funny because, my peers, I've told this story too. And, a few of them, they're just like, do you know how many people I would have actually really killed to have been able to do that? How many people I would have run over in my car? I mean, it's just like the... Yeah. It's interesting. That
it's
again,
interesting.
That it's like, when somebody's done the work for you, they want to be here. They want to be here for you to answer your questions. And okay, then that's fine. I mean, I can't make you want your dream.
Nope. But I have an idea, and I'll talk to you after we end this. Okay. Brian, what's your favorite tech?
My favorite tech?
When it comes to the film notebook. What is it? iPad. What is it? iPad.
I mean, I gotta say, I walk around like this. No, I'm not all that time.
Hey, do you draw? Do you sketch and all that too?
Now I do because of the iPad.
Okay.
Yeah, seriously, because I'm not an artistic person. And I mean, I'm not an artist. I'm artistic. I have artistic thinking and meanings, and I think I have enough critical thinking that I know the path I need to take to make something look the way I want it to look.
Yes.
There are people who just go, and because they're artists and they see things, and I think I've started to train myself to be that. I mean, I'm still not going to take on that monitor, but the iPad, because I used to draw a little bit when I was a kid, trace stormtroopers or something like that. But the one thing about the iPad, I'm going to name 2 apps that everybody needs to buy. Procreate and Nomad. Nomad sculpting. 3D sculpting. It's almost kind of like, layperson's version of ZBrush or something, but it's almost kind of like Sculptor Skills or something, or Forager back in the day. Nomad is really good, and the level of work that people are doing with this. I mean, I sculpt on here and I send it to my computer, slice it up, send it to the printer. You know, it's another piece of tech that's good. But the fantastic thing about the iPad and those two, I mean, Procreate, I think, is $12, not a subscription.
Yeah.
The company is maintaining we will never make it a subscription. You know, it's $12, and Nomad, I think, is $15. Again, no subscription. And they're two amazing workhorse apps. For what I, I can sit there and, just start sculpting and it kind of almost feels like it. I know that they just created ZBrush for the iPad, which, I mean, I don't got the brain, I don't got the bandwidth to pull in ZBrush. It's just way too much going on. Like, look at the big.
I've never used it before.
Yeah, I mean, it's really intense. I know that Blender, my son, Blender is like an open source on the web. Everybody's going to do a thing. My son taught himself how to get YouTube and stuff.
Yeah. I want to learn how to use it.
Yeah, but what's exciting? I mean, because that's all vertex. These are all polygons. This is all polygons in my world, but man, it's so intuitive. It's just, I mean, I need to take it. I bought like a tutorial on how to use it, but I just had to study it. It's just too easy to do. Like Procreate. If you can use Procreate, it's just like, I don't even use Photoshop anymore.
I bought it for my daughter's 4, so I bought it knowing that she'll probably want to use it in the future, just so I can have it. I learned on Illustrator, so
yeah, you bet.
I cannot draw on a piece of paper. I mean, I took art when I was a kid, but if you give me something on a computer, I can draw it.
You know what? I think that the magic word is free, right? Because it's the freedom to erase. For a reason to double tap and go backwards a couple of steps and then just do whatever. So that, I mean, come on. Pencil to paper is might as well be pen to paper. It's just like, it's so permanent. And when you fuck up, you're like, I gotta start again. So, but what I think the iPad has done for me as, doing stuff on Procreate, whether I'm doing like graphic design or drawing or trying to creature something, maybe when it's Nomad, being sculpt stuff. The ability to fix, edit, go backwards, that freedom makes it less painful. I mean, it's just because there's an insecurity. It's just like, okay, I gotta draw something now. It's just like, look at the eyes are like, maybe do Picasso, but that iPad, you can erase, you can just do it again as a tool, so that mindset has made it more fun to be able to do it. And so then it makes me do it more because I'm having more fun. I'm not so like, I don't have my anxiety about like, don't look at me while I draw.
Right.
It's now you can just kind of do whatever and then, erase it or, save everything. But I think for me, it's been really important to just so I've been, always. Otherwise, I never would.
Are you the type? Do you have that layer that feels like paper, or are you just drawing glass?
I have it on one of them. I have two because I had one and I got like, oh no! Remember? I don't know if you did it, like we all did, and quite honestly, I think there needs to be a class action lawsuit. But I think it was the 2020 iPad when the big was when this drops, we will have a fully functional Adobe Photoshop on the iPad, right? They were partnering with it, right? I don't think we've ever seen that, and it's been 4 or 5 years.
That's a good point.
There is a Photoshop out there, and it came out like 2 years after the fact.
Yeah.
But it's a really weird watered down version. Like the drop downs are totally different. Nothing's where you think it would be if you worked with Photoshop.
Right.
And Photoshop used to be really into.
Yeah.
I just go to Procreate, and then if I get something to a point, I'll send it to my laptop. I'll jump on maybe Photoshop then. But Procreate, I can do most everything. It's amazing. So, but yeah, I don't know. If anybody's out there that thinks that we could have a class action,
I know
everybody went off on an iPad after that.
Yeah, there's a comic book artist that uses Procreate.
Yeah.
I know. There's a storyboard artist I know, he uses that, and he does comics on it.
Yeah.
So yeah. He said he's trying to get into Blender too.
Yeah. But I think it's. But I had the one, and then I had to go buy the other one because I'm getting ready for Photoshop. I thought, okay, I'll do that one. I'll sell this one. And then, the iPad Pros, I held on to them because then I'll be just playing and drawing and just doing stuff, and then so the battery dies. It's like, oh shit! And then I'll send it over to the other one that's charged up, and then continue there, and then charge that one, and I'll just go back and forth. And so, yeah.
Brian,
one has the paper, one doesn't, and I don't know. Do you like that?
I've never tried it. I don't. My wife has the iPad. My daughter has an iPad Mini. I don't have an iPad.
Yeah. Oh, you gotta get one there. It's fantastic.
I have a Mac Pro. So, yeah. But how can people reach you? If they want to reach out to you, what's the best way? I'll put all your links in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you go to my website, briansipe.com or gamstudios.com or .flesh.com. There's all that. I mean, my email and my phone number's up there. So, I mean, that's how you do it.
One-stop shop.
Awesome. DM me somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to pass on the information. If I can help somebody. I mean, if open to see this art die, we could. There's surely signs of it. I mean, there's surely signs of a lot of things. I mean, remember when actually VFX popped in matte painters, model shops. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Howard Whitlock and all these people like Sony, like the studio. Each studio used to have like an in-house model shop that would build like miniature cities, the spaceships are gone. So like whole profession gone, and I think this new VFX AI will, although with the advent of VFX, we are now making movies that we never would have made. All the Lord of the Rings movies, I mean, there are things that but you got employed. So we'll see. I just think the soul will go away from the product. I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see the young ones will feel it will be us, the old people who are used to going to the theater and seeing something, or used to actually a really good story. It didn't repeat itself 4 or 5 times in just different words. So goddamn YouTube. Does anybody make one real anymore?
Right. Well, so that's interesting that you brought that up, because I don't think we ever really talked about what the future looks like.
Yeah.
Do you actually think this art form is going to go away? Do you think it's on the verge of distinction because of computer graphics?
It could be. I mean,
is it going to be that good?
We'll find out. Tyler Perry's testing that right now.
Who?
Tyler Perry.
Okay.
A friend of mine, buddy of mine, we moved. He got out of business years ago, but then still stays in. And he created some makeups, which Tyler Perry movie is happening. He created the makeups. We didn't even go to set. I think he hired somebody else to apply the makeups to Tyler. Full scan, never to be used again. Digital characters.
Oh, but you still had to create them.
Which you're not going to have the 70 days on set.
Okay.
I mean, sure, somebody created it. But then at a point, it would just be like, I mean, you get the manners, you get the certain things, but pretty soon that algorithm gets fast. we don't even do that. Now all I need to do is have somebody digitally sculpted. And we've already got either wireframe, we got whatever, we've got all his memory, we got his speech, typing what we wanted to say. And I mean, it's an upgraded version of Pixar. It's,
fascinating.
Look at like the video game world. They spend so much. They spend like twice the amount of money on a video game than they spend in movies.
Yeah.
And sometimes the artwork is really good. The artwork's way better in the trailers than it is in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like so incredible sometimes. But motion capture and somebody building a great model, and then animators going at it. So
that's the first thing I think of is Pirates of the Caribbean with the actor, the octopus.
Yeah,
Davy
Jones. I mean, that in my day would have been 3 or 4 makeup artists and like 12 puppeteers.
Yeah.
To make all this go. And there's still probably a lot of people behind the scenes doing some work, but there's a lot of things that got kind of shaved off. So I think there's a certain amount of stuff that will go away. I mean, things will happen, but it will diminish. So I think, to the point of be obsessive, the only people who will work will be the good ones.
Yeah.
People who are really good, or people who are really good sheep and will just do whatever the boss says, and they're going to touch up with the CQ. So it doesn't matter what they look like. Just put something that we're going to touch them. we just need them to feel good about themselves.
Right.
Yeah. There's always that. So, which we're probably not that far from. I mean, I was talking to a person at a very specific company, a VFX company, and they've been around for quite a while. And there was like a time, I think in the 90s, where it was really kind of slow for people. And then it was, but we were busy, because, everyone was getting Botox. We had to go back in and give them expressions. So they had to, they had to like raise the brows and,
oh my God.
They had to do things so that everybody had stone face. And then, or, it's just like somebody, partied too hard last night. They're like, taking away that, that big puffy eye.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's versions of everybody getting cleaned up and versions of, small ones were the ones who, I guess, copyrighting themselves and trademarking themselves so that they couldn't just, what's his name? This guy, Darth Vader.
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones gave the rights to Disney.
To his voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
I heard that. How crazy is that?
Yeah. Which is weird. Like, I mean, okay, he wanted it to live on as a legacy, but that's also a legacy that they could have been paying your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like Disney don't need the money.
Right. Well, Brian, thank you so much for being on the Downing Cut. I appreciate it. Yeah. If anything comes up in the future, come back.
Let's
chat.
Anytime.